Hey guys, here we are with the newest Wizzard product, the Wizzard Shoe Fighter. Just look at that, it looks like a fighter jet. We have these for scale engineering, which is this one. The Wizzard will be all the way at the back. We also have one for our THO setup blocks. Wizzard will be in the middle. Different framework. Um, this is a microscope setup. This is a jig for microscope that you can get from Amazon. What this does, it plugs into your phone, tablet, etc. You can look at your shoes without cramming your neck into a light. So what I'm going to do is show you how it works. So the old scale engineering with the square corners will be a little tight right here. You may have to file just this corner a little bit on each side. They fit here, this front corner right here, but they're a little tighter than expected. I just took my measurements off the newer ones, which are slightly smaller, unfortunately. But nonetheless, it's just a very light file. So what you're going to do is once you get this set up, you are going to open up your phone, plug in your microscope that you've gotten. You're going to download this called iView. I will turn it sideways because that is the way that I believe it should work the best. Now, right now we see basically nothing, but when I put this car on this is just a flat block. Here we are, and you can see that quite clearly. It's actually quite cold today, so the furnace kicked on. Surprise. So, in this position, we are looking at the passenger shoe. You can slide this block over and look at the driver's shoe. The driver's shoe is very flat. What we're looking for here is flatness. That was one thing we're looking for, okay? The other thing we're looking for, and this is going to be a basic shoe setup tutorial. I say basic because there are some other things that you can do. So, what I would tell you is push on the very back where the screw goes and just lift the car up a little bit. Okay, when the tires lift up, you should be able to see with the car. As soon as the car or the tires start to lift, the shoe should lift, which is where this should be set up. You can see the chassis move in the video. At the same time, it is a little bit of a watch and see. Okay, so that's the first thing, which I'm going to set a shoe up after in the video. See, and this one's cocked a little bit to the side. Now what that's going to do, that's going to give you a false reading. So what we're going to do, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this shoe off. I'm going to grab behind the step in front of the hook, and I'm going to twist it just a little bit the way that it's supposed to go. Now this can be extremely irritating your first 100 times. I'm going to say 100 times because if you worked on a T-Jet long enough, you know what I'm talking about. You can tweak this shoe and over tweak it, under tweak it, and just keep going. Okay, so and if you don't know which way you need to lean it, you can come in here and push which side. See, if I push on the inside, it flattens out. So that means the shoe has to twist a certain way. You're going to have to remember that when you're doing this. And so I'll take the shoe off, twist it a little bit, put it back on. I don't know where this car is set. This is a very old car that has been run in the fray for a few years. I'm not going to tell you that this will make it faster, per se, if you see everything properly. It will make it easier to see. So one of the things we've been working on here is trying to extend and make it easier. Oh, see, like now it's the other way. And try to make it easier for racers who have, lesser than 20/20 eyesight to be able to work on their cars. I noticed at the Ohio Cup, for instance, that a lot of guys were asking Ron and I, and somebody else is over there, working on shoes. I know Jeff Lauterbach was over there. Somebody else over there. We just might have been Ken on. Just over there. We've got the flat. So that that's what that's so you can do that with this. That it's all spaced, so that way the microscope should be about even, because obviously it's tolerance based with each individual block. Now, once we have that done, we can take a shoe setup block. I'm just going to take the 15, put it in here. We're going to make sure it's flat on this one, because sometimes you make sure they're clean, because that's part of it. Sometimes they do look slightly different on the raised block, the way the shoe is hitting. See that shoe in particular? See that? A little bit different on a raised block. This shoe, for some reason, seems to be hitting only in the middle. And we'll go over why that might be, because that might be due to a number of factors. So, to maybe disprove that it's actually doing that a little bit, we're going to put this on an 8-thou block and see if it still reads the same. See, now we're hitting pretty much the whole shoe. Trying not to get my hands in the way. See, like now we're hitting the whole shoe. And what's happening there is the car's not set up for 15-thou rails, so we're only hitting in the very back of the shoe, most likely, which we can now verify. We'll put the 15 back on, the car back on the 15. We'll put it at this angle, which is going to show you the far shoe on the jig, pointing to it here. So this is the passenger, even though it's in this slot. See? And now, this is where the light can be tricky. Sometimes you don't want as much light. So I've got a light behind this jig setup, as you can see. If you make it too bright, it actually makes it really hard to see. So, you know, having a little bit of light is good. Also, the microscope does have a light on itself. So you can see that. I'm turning this dial. I usually prefer no light on the microscope. There are times I have turned it on to try and see the very front of the shoe a little bit better. So we can see we're riding on the heel. Right? Push back on the back of the car, it lifts up and it hits. Okay? So, put the 8 back on there. Lo and behold, it's hitting much better. Still not perfect, still a little heel. This car is definitely set up for some small rails. I don't even know if the shoes were set up properly, to be quite honest. So, this is what this does. And then you want to look at the other shoe, you just pick the block up, flip it to the other side, and voila. Okay, now this one, this is where the light, too much light, even overhead light can kind of be a problem here. In some manner, see, like when overhead light, I put my hand over it, you see how much darker, it kind of focuses the light better. So sometimes, you know, if you're having trouble seeing, that might be a good thing to do. You can zoom this turns back here where I'm turning here. You can kind of zoom it in and out. You can move it in and out as well. I have done the math to kind of make it so that hopefully once you get it set, you don't have to do much with the 3 blocks. You know, so that way you just pop the car there based off of the front hole. Yeah, there's the slot. You know, if you want to use that, you can move the car a little bit more. Anyway, so this shoe, little in the middle, maybe a little bit on the toe, right? So you'd want to go in there and tweak it on the heel. So the second stage, this is the RTHO one. The black anodized blocks from Scale Engineering is actually quite helpful in this because there's less light refraction back towards you and into the microscope. So, if, you know, what I did here, this is just purple dye. That seemed to really help. You could probably black Sharpie it, probably be just as good. And if you Sharpie the same amount, it should still be the same height on your RTHO blocks. These are still very good blocks. Just a little bit bigger device, not much, to accommodate the longer block. So, same principle. This is cut a little differently because these blocks are different height to still work in conjunction with this, because this is the only flat block that's available currently. So yeah, it works the exact same way. I have a bunch of scan engineering ones done. My printer decided to give out for a little bit before the RTHOs. I've got a couple RTHOs done, just not a huge inventory yet. So, we're going to mark this as how to set a shoe up for the rest of the video, from start to scratch. This is how I would do it. Everybody has slightly different techniques. I will leave this video there so you can see. You can turn these in here, just flatten, you want to get it straight on your device, probably, just for ease of use. So, brand new Wizzard ski. I damaged my finger, so pardon the bandage. I will take some very fine sandpaper. I'm going to say it's 1200 grit. Extremely light pressure on the very, you want to just barely touch it. Back and forth, side to side. Okay, you can do circles. You can do figure eights. I do not like going front to back. As if you go really lightly, you can go front to back. But if you go too heavy, you will dig. You will dig the front and the back, and you'll make almost like a very slight banana in the shoe. So, for everyone's sake, it's just better practice. I mean, I'm extremely light. You want to put no pressure on this. I've actually seen, I think it's Jeff Kratz. He uses, shout out Prey Champion Jeff Kratz. I believe he uses some double-sided tape of some sort. Maybe double-sided tape with a little foam in there, just to stick it to his finger and just lightly sand it. So you want to lightly sand it to where you get a nice shine the whole way across. Okay, now, I don't know what size front tires is on this car, honestly. So, but with most cars running around 300, this is my basic start point. Typically, you have to put a little bit more on the toe to start, because you want to make sure you're not hitting back here when you're checking on these devices. Okay, I have these pliers that are ground at an angle. That angle is to grab the shoe like so. And since my hand's damaged, I'll have to use my other hand. And think about that. I usually use that finger to do this. All right, I will take a fingernail with the angle, try and get that in the camera for you, and I will bend it further. Okay, that's usually not quite enough on my pliers. I could probably make that a sharper angle, probably make it work. So because it's not quite sharp enough for my pliers, I will take the angle, shove it in the corner here, and the whole reason why I do things the way I do is to not mess with that flat patch we just got. And I will bend the back and Z it a little bit further back. Okay, so I believe it was this shoe that was really out of whack, if I remember right. Might as well place the one that's really out of whack, right? Yeah, so this was on a heel at 8, so we're going to take that one off. So, take the shoe off, place the shoe on the car. First things first, we will check the restriction. There are multiple things and different tricks and tips of doing this. The basic shoe setup to me is to put it on this flat block. This will work on virtually every track. Okay, you tap on the back. It's, if you see the shoe, you see how the chassis is moving up and the shoe is not moving with it. That means we're not quite restricted enough. But before we can really check that, we still need to flatten the shoe. So the flat area, if the shoe comes down and touches this flat plate, it'll hit on a 0th thou rail. That means that unless your rail's under the track, you should be able to make a connection. More advanced methods, this is a piece of Scotch tape on the other side. I don't remember exactly how thick this is. I mean, it's probably 3 or 4 thousandths, mil, whatever you want to call it. That's a further up restriction technique. On some tracks it works, on some tracks it does not. Typically with more restriction, you need a little tiny bit more chute tension because your shoe doesn't come, it doesn't come down as far. In case you hit low rails, you need to make sure that shoe's connected. So, those are the finer restriction points. I need to bend this shoe a little bit this way. Still a little bit, I mean, real close. Well, I touched it and it went flat, so maybe we are flat. I would say that's probably close enough to get started for that, but we do need, and this is where sometimes the light in the front helps. So you can it really enhances when you turn the light on in the front on this. But we still need to restrict it a little more. Sometimes when you restrict it a little more, it goes back at an angle. You can take these back, you probably can take this back a little more. There's a certain point where you can't bend it back anymore, however. Check it again, we bent it back, still got a little bit of wiggle. Don't want the wiggle, you want it to come up as soon as that chassis starts to move, you want this thing to come up. You can grab a pair of pliers like so and squeeze this. You have to be very careful to do so, because if you squeeze too far, you'll snap it flat and you will probably ruin the pickup shoe. Sometimes you can bend it back out with a razor blade. Sometimes they don't want to. See, now we're restricted too much. See, now we got light underneath there completely. So we can either unbend it a little bit in the front, depending on how far close we are to the back, which we have a little bit of room there. So we can just bend this back out a little bit and see if we can't lose a little restriction. And we went right back to where we were, which is the lovely part of a T-Jet shoe. Sometimes you must muck with stuff, and sometimes it mucks with you. That's the best way to put it. I have been quoted as saying that you can spend 3 hours on a pair of pickup shoes. I'm not arguing that at all. I think that's, see, like, now I touch it, shoe comes up. That's about perfect. Yeah, I could probably get a little bit nitty grittier, but for the video, I don't really see any movement there. It seems like the shoe's moving as soon as you see the plastic moving. So now that we have that done, let's just say we're going to set up at 14. So this is where I still have the light on the microscope. We'll kill the light. That'll help. Let's kill the light a little bit behind it as well. You see, that makes the video a little bit better to see. Now, your phone does power the microscope, so if you leave it plugged in all day, it's going to kill your battery. Okay, so when you're not using it, take it out. Okay, now I'm just looking to make sure it's flat on this. You will have some gap. There should be 14th out there that it moves before the pickup shoe kicks up. Okay. Now, one thing I can say, I'm going to point with this pen, you can see there's a little bit of dancing here where the shoe moves just a little bit right here. That's not overly worrisome, but if I was setting my car for the fray, I'd try to figure out that dance and figure out why it's not lifting straight up. So, it looks like it's straight on here. I'm going to kill the front light again. Put this back in here. Now this looks pretty close for me just randomly bending it the way I did, because I know they always tend to have to go a little bit to the front. But you can see right here that there's a little bit of a gap. So the safest way to do this isn't always the way I do it. You might see me with some knives and some screwdrivers bending from behind. The safest way to do this, these are parallel jaw pliers, so they come together straight. So I keep the shoe in this flat, so that way I don't ruin the sand job I just did. That's the way I would recommend you guys to do it. Do as I say, not as I do. Usually a key factor. Bend this up a little bit. Now, how much it takes, metal sometimes will argue with you. Sometimes it goes very easy. Sometimes it moves the way you want it to. Sometimes you can bend it 6 times, what you think is bending it 6 times, and it doesn't go. I've done 1,000,000 shoes in my lifetime. Or it feels like 1,000,000. It's not 1,000,000, I'm sure. But that is a perfect shoe. We can zoom in a little bit further for you to a point. Turn the light on if you want. And that is what we're trying to do. That shoe is now set up at 14,000. There's a tiny little, maybe a little bit gap in the back. But when you touch on the back of the car, the shoe, so you can have them give you a false reading like this. And when you touch the back of the car, if you see the front of the shoe dip down, that means it's still riding on a high point somewhere in here. So let me see if I can get this to do that really quickly. Of course, it's not going to want to bend. So, and this isn't going to be exaggerated because I just did that. See, when you pull up, you see the front pull down? That's exaggerated because of what just happened. Because I was just doing it, trying to get it to bend back. But sometimes you'll see where it almost looks perfect, and then you dip it, and it doesn't dip back. Okay? So, and now it's not going to want to go back. It's not quite as good as it was before. We got a little bit more in the back. Now, there are some finer points that I want to go over here. First off, I like just a little checklist. When you do this, you should always check your car for three-wheel first. If your car is three-wheeling before you do your shoes, you're going to get some really funky readings on your shoes. If you have too much shoe tension, you're going to get some really funky readings on your shoes too. So I've actually suggested for newer people, and this is like a newbie quote, I would take a pair of springs and I would just cut them almost in half and use those and make it so they're extremely light springs so the shoe still comes down but has very light tension. And then you can use that to set up on your block and then put your real springs in the car. Especially like there's some Max Tracks, some older TKOs that just took an intense amount of shoe tension to get the horsepower. Now some of the newer tracks are a lot better, so that's not always the case with every brand of track. But when you're setting your shoes up with that much shoe tension, the car, the front tires will lift on the block. So instead of seeing the car right there, touching, you'll see the car like this, and then the shoes are going to look a lot better if the front tires aren't down, because if they're hitting perfect and the tires are up in the air, you push the tires down, it's going to be on the heels. And with magnetic downforce, that's going to happen. So that is basically how I set up the shoes for a car. That went very quickly, I'll be quite honest. I've had a couple people message me recently that once they watched my original shoe video, they understand what's going on, but they don't understand they understand what's going on. They didn't realize how long it can take when you're new, and it can take you 3 hours the first few times. Do you have to be perfect? You don't have to be perfect. But if your shoes are not restricted, if your shoes come off the rail block at different times, that causes a burn, because if one shoe lifts off power, you're going to arc, right? So you really want those as even as possible on the restriction. Even if the restriction is not perfectly on the flat block, say, but they both come down the same amount, that's okay. It may affect your handling and ill performing. It may, so it may affect that, but it's going to still stop the burn. Tracks with a lot of hills, that's where sometimes the flat block, every once in a while, if you have a ton of elevation changes, even what's the name of the track? The Grand Champion at Lentros's uh, the inside shoe. So the driver's side shoe in the yellow lane, you have to drop it further because the track is at such a camber that you don't have power coming out of the corner. So that's just one example of sometimes when you have to do some weird things with pickup shoes. This is a general. This is how I set it up. The cars at the Ohio Cup this last weekend, car I raced and Bodie raced, were all set up on this, exactly just like this. So at that point, it's just a matter of shoe tension, shoe ride, making sure the car is not three wheeling. So I hope this helps out a bunch of people. I think the microscope's a great idea. In case anybody asks or is wondering, this hole that's up here was originally to tap for just a set screw of some sort, just to hold the micro. But they're so tight, I don't think it's necessary. Now, maybe if it wears out over time, maybe then. But I think just a dot is, yeah. I think once you get this microscope set in the right spot, you're probably not gonna need to do anything with it other than maybe put a dot. Maybe you put a dot of silicone in there or something just to hold it. So there you have it. There is the shoe fighter. You can name yours whatever plane you want it to be, you know. And I hope this is an informative video. The jigs are $25. These microscopes are on Amazon for $40. We're not providing the microscopes because if they go bad, you can return it to Amazon. I don't want to try and test a whole bunch of microscopes and send them out and then have to have it returned to me, returned to Amazon. That seems like a nightmare. So you guys can just get it on Amazon, use it. If you have an iPhone 12 or older and you have a Lightning connector, you're going to have to get an adapter to USB-C because they only come in USB-C. So I hope this is a lot of informative stuff for you. I hope if you need help with your shoes, I hope this is something that you can use. So, and this is the same way, even though the RT is longer, this is set up so that this will show you what you need to see. And they're the same height once they're in here, believe it or not. So that way you can actually see what you need to, even though they're different. They're designed a little differently. So if you need anything, these will be up on the site. I will have a link to the microscope, hopefully in the video description, and where you buy the jigs at from us. There'll be a link there to the product on Amazon. And let me know what you think. I know guys are really excited about it.